Cori,
Hello.
since we still have some time, I have a challenge for you to tell us stories about your dwarf fortress. Do you have any fun events or cool projects in mind? And also explain to chat why werebeast attacks cause such long-term problems. You can take this
So
however you want.
yeah, I could just go right into the werebeast attacks. You get like, uh, there's like random creatures will walk into the territory of your fortress if you're playing in fortress mode. Sometimes it's like goblins from neighboring civilizations. Sometimes it's merchants. Sometimes you get migrant waves. Uh, and if someone is infected with one of the were conditions, and they can be like were giraffes or were hamsters or things like that, uh, during a particular time, they transform and start attacking everyone and will try to bite them. And anyone that is bitten becomes infected. And at the end of the period of time, they revert, and you can't tell that they have the condition. So they'll be
Oh.
injured, and your dwarves will take them to like the hospital, and they'll be laid up for months. And then the time will come around, and they'll transform, and they'll be fully healed, and they'll go on a rampage through like your hospital and your interior of your fort. Then it's just nasty.
Hmm.
And then you start a new fortress, and you get a wave of migrants, and one of them has a custom name from one of your previous forts, and you're like, was that the fort that got wiped out by were chinchillas? And turns out, yes, it was. That person, that dwarf, will transform and kill you. Ooh.
Cori, do you use any graphical add-ons, or do you go straight ASCII for the dwarf fortressing?
Yeah, I'm just a default vanilla dwarf fortress player.
Eating the Matrix.
Although I am looking forward to the version that's going to be released on Steam eventually. Ah, geez, what else? There's always things where you're like trying to tame a bunch of animals, and then a cyclops comes along and kills everything, or you're trying to pump water through a certain area and you completely flood your fortress because water is difficult. It's hard to build like just a big hole in the ground for all your people to live, and then accidentally unleash a river into there because you wanted a cool water feature in your fort, or to water your farms because you farm underground.
I feel like most Dwarf Fortress stories I hear end with flooding. Like that seems to be a pretty common.
Yeah, either water or lava
everywhere.
I remember the first time I heard of Dwarf Fortress was actually Molly's Ben telling me about it, and I remember there was also a lot of flooding and random waves of enemies.
Yeah. Oh,
it's just a scroll of misfortunes, just sort of an endless.
There's necromancers, so books with secret knowledge can be discovered. They've got like the secrets of life and death, and your dwarves will read that and acquire necromancy, and then start raising undead beasts or other dwarfs that just happen to die in their vicinity. And,
hang on a second. Is Dwarf Fortress just Tolkien Blazeball?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's forbidden books that shouldn't be opened. There's people getting set on fire.
Yeah, it's just a large simulated world that you just kind of experience. Any role playing that happens as far as like fortress mode goes is like in your head mostly, because you can read the descriptions of the dwarves and you get some sense of like their inner thoughts, what they like or dislike, what relationships they have to other dwarves, and their skills. So you could be like, this hunter was married to this other person and their child died because of this invasion from a forgotten beast that was like acidic slug that flew into your base, and now they're sad, and you can pretend that they're sad for that reason. They don't like seeing bodies.
No.
If your dwarves get exposed to bodies, they get sad.
Then they tantrum spiral.
Yeah, they become unruly and tantrum. And then they'll go around your base breaking things or attacking other people.
Oh,
Yeah. They'll also do that if they get like inspired to craft something really cool and they can't find the materials or a place to craft it.
Oh, yeah. Relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, our friend Brian used to, like, he would notice a dwarf get into a silly mood or a funny mood or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, oh no. And then he'd just wall them into their workshop and be like, I'm just going to wait until they either calm down or die.
Sometimes they can just get depressed instead of going berserk, but yeah.
So there's an element to The Sims in there as well. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna let this dwarf go into this pool of lava and just take out the stairs, take out the ladder.
Oh, you can totally do that. Yeah, you can assign dwarves to military squads and then tell them where to move to, or you can restrict what jobs they're able to do, like whether or not they're allowed to like chop down trees or haul things from different locations. So yeah, you can totally. Oh, and there's bridges, like so you can make just a drawbridge pit trap. And there's mine carts that you can have run automatically, and those will run over things. And you can fill them with spiked balls, and then release those, like suddenly stop the minecart and then shoot just an array of spiked balls down a corridor that may or may not be populated.
It's very much the kind of like, it's not as visually expressive as Minecraft, where you get to see a lot of those things happen because you see them more as characters coming across a screen and interacting with each other. But
Yeah.
it's still fun because when you learn to read the Matrix, it all means something.
Yeah.
I know I've already made this comparison, but like I feel exactly the same kind of like weird brain fog as when you talk about Blazeball. like I feel like we could have done this in the Blazeball segment and I wouldn't have known the difference.
Oh,
But
easily.
it's like it's really fun when you get to the point where you can kind of see what's going on. Like you can establish a temple and then put little instruments in there, and then you can see your little dwarves dancing when they celebrate. They do little like circular rotations, and they all look like they're having a good time. And then they go to the tavern and pick up a mug and listen to a bard sing because you set up a little tavern. And most of the time, I just kind of spend trying to make sure all my doors match. Got to make them with doors out of the same material so they're colored the same. And then like you definitely got to work on making like your guild halls pretty because you get like 3 gems and you can make a gem window, and that's really good for decoration. And your dwarves can you can specify what statues or engravings they make in walls, so you can like go real ham on just like making your own serpent cult, or like
You can go real
invent
ham
a
on
harvest
making your
god.
I just like the sentence. I'm sorry to interrupt. That you're going real ham on making your own serpent cult is a very glamorous statement.
You know what this fortress
didn't
needs
wanna
is
let
a
that slide.
serpent cult.
Yeah, you could just be like, I would like to commission 1,000 statues of a serpent. And
mean,
that
that's-
serpent is standing on top of a tree. Like, you can specify that.
It's
I see
it's
no
a
doubt
job
with it.
creation initiative.
Oh,
Really,
Yeah,
it stimulates
Wanger.
the economy.
House of 1,000 Snakes. You can make House of 1,000 Snakes. Snakes are an animal type, and you can capture and train animals, so they're friendly. But you can also just capture and then release hostile animals into rooms that you later deploy through like gates or things. Some people like to make gladiator pits. It's
I like the idea of having like domesticated worker snakes, like snakes you've trained to do things for you, like farm or like pull carts.
I think
What's the most impractical job for a snake to do?
Ooh, guard snake would be pretty bad. Hunting snake, that would also be bad.
Nurse.
Some dwarves will also adopt animals that have been trained as pets, and you can let them be for adoption, and then they'll like live in that dwarf's room, hang out.
That's cool. I do like that. I do like the thing about how there was that time where they were wondering why all the cats were upset or drunk, and it turned out that the cats were walking around in the beer, but then
Yeah.
they would stop and they would lick their paws, but they kept walking around in all the beer, and they licked their paws enough that eventually they ingested enough alcohol that it made all the cats drunk.
Yeah, the
Why they were dying,
simulation for creature bodies has like surface level, inner level, bones kind of level of discernment, as well as like clothing is treated separately, so you can have some weird accidents happen.
It's like one of those things where you're like, we didn't expect that to be the case, but that was sure a thing that happened.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this room got too hot, and now all the fat in my dwarves has been rendered.
Time to make candles?
Holy crap! Oh. Mike is telling us about how if models or the game models fingernail growth,
Yeah,
and at what point the fingernails get too long, and then they become long enough to become annoying, and then you'd have to have them clipped. Like,
definitely look up like starting guides or like how to get into Dwarf Fortress. Like, don't
Don't just
don't
download
just
it and try.
boot it up and get lost and frustrated.
that happened to
Right.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, you tried to play Dwarf Fortress?
Yeah, when I was out of work, I thought, why don't I spend my time doing this because no one's hiring me? I bounced off that in about an hour. I was like, nope, this... Brian tells a great story about how to play the
Oh,
game. They're so
mean-
entertaining, but I was
Well,
like, I can't
And
do
he's
it.
right. Like, dwarves are obsessed with socks for some reason. Like, I have no idea why. No one knows why dwarves are obsessed with socks, but they are. He told us a story about like a time that he got attacked by a goblin army, and then one of his dwarves got killed because there was a sock on the ground outside the walls, and they were just like, "Oh, a sock!" And they jumped off the wall and ran out there to go get it in front
Someone
of the goblin
save
army.
it.
Sounds
Like,
a little
oh,
bit
I
like,
need that sock. It's really good.
Can,
Sounds a little bit like Gravity Falls.